My mother didn't invite me to her 60th birthday. She invited my sister. And the reason she gave me was simple. I looked too much like my father. But 3 weeks later, I discovered that my father's death had been built on a lie, and someone had deliberately kept me away from my own family to hide it. Then I found a document with my sister's forged signature, and the person behind it had been inside our family for 11 years. If you were in my position, would you confront your mother immediately, or stay quiet and find out who was really pulling the strings? Watch until the end, and if you love family secrets, shocking twists, and stories where the truth changes everything, subscribe and join me for the next one. The invitation to my mother's 60th birthday had my sister's name on it, my mother's handwriting inside it, and one sentence that made me realize I had been deliberately erased from the guest list. Kala, I want you beside me on my birthday. Please do not bring Isolde. I need the day to remain peaceful. You know why? I read it 3 times at my kitchen table. My name is Isolde Vale. I was 34 years old, lived 40 minutes from Bellwether Cove, and had spent most of my adult life trying not to become the person my mother feared I would become. My sister, Calanthe, was 37 and had always been the easier daughter. She had my mother's brown eyes, careful smile, and talent for keeping conversations calm. I had my father's face, dark eyes, heavy eyebrows, a square jaw, the same expression my mother once told me made her uncomfortable because it reminded her of a man she had spent 11 years trying to forget. My father, Roderick Vale, had been dead for 11 years. Apparently, that was still not long enough. I turned the invitation over. There was no mistake. My sister's full name was printed on the envelope. Mine wasn't. I picked up my phone and called Calanthe. She answered before the second ring. Isolde, you got the invitation too? There was a pause. Yes. Did Mom tell you not to bring me? Another pause. Yes. I leaned back in my chair. Why? Because she wants the birthday to be peaceful. That isn't an answer. She said she doesn't want anything reminding her of Dad. I stared at the photograph on the wall behind my phone. It was an old picture of my father holding me when I was 4. So she doesn't want me there because I look like him? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Isolde, please. No. I want to understand. What exactly did she tell you? Calanthe lowered her voice. She said seeing you sometimes makes her feel like she's back in the worst years of her marriage. I swallowed. That sounds like something she should tell me herself. I know. Then why are you defending her? I'm not. You are. I am trying to keep this from becoming another fight. I almost laughed. I'm not the one who mailed an invitation with my name missing. She went quiet. Then she said, there is something else. What? Mom has been preparing for this birthday for months. So, she keeps saying it's the beginning of a new chapter. I looked down at the invitation. What kind of chapter? I don't know. You're lying. I wish I were. Before I could ask anything else, she said, don't go to the house tonight. Why? She doesn't want you there. Then she hung up. I sat alone at the table, listening to the refrigerator hum. For several minutes, I told myself to let it go. My mother was 60. Maybe she wanted one day without arguments. Maybe I really was too closely connected to memories she couldn't handle. Maybe this was simply another painful decision in a family that had never learned how to discuss painful things. But something about Calanthe's voice bothered me. She sounded afraid. 3 days later, I drove to Bellwether Cove. I didn't tell my mother I was coming. The town looked exactly as it had when I was a child. The harbor was busy with fishing boats. The old bookstore still occupied the corner beside the pharmacy, and the cedar-sided house where we grew up stood at the end of a narrow street lined with old maples. I parked across from the house. I didn't go inside. Instead, I watched. My mother, Elspeth Vale, appeared upstairs carrying a cardboard box. She was a small woman with silver hair, straight posture, and a habit of organizing everything before she allowed herself to rest. At 60, she still moved like someone who expected life to demand something from her at any moment. She crossed the bedroom. Then someone entered the house. Mirek Sable. I knew him. Everyone involved with my mother's community foundation knew him. He had worked for her for nearly 7 years. Officially, he handled administration and event planning for the Vale Community Fund. He was 48, always perfectly dressed, always polite, and always careful about what he said. I had never liked him. Not because he had done anything obvious. It was something smaller. Whenever I visited my mother, Marek watched conversations instead of participating in them. He noticed who arrived, who left, what documents were on the table, which questions my mother asked. And that afternoon, when he stepped through my mother's front door, he looked directly across the street, straight at my car. I ducked. My heart started beating faster. A minute later, Marek came back outside. He stood on the porch. He didn't approach me. He simply looked at the car for several seconds before returning inside. I drove away. That evening, I stopped at a coffee shop near the harbor. I was halfway through my coffee when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then a message appeared. If your mother excluded you because you look like Roderick, you're looking at the wrong problem. I stared at the screen. Another message arrived. Do not confront Marek yet. I typed, who are you? The reply came immediately. Someone who knows what he is doing. Then a photograph appeared. It showed a legal document. At the top was the name of the Vale Community Fund. At the bottom was my mother's signature. The document transferred control of the foundation to Calanthe. I zoomed in. The date was 6 weeks earlier. My sister had never mentioned it. I called her. She answered with a tired voice. What happened? Did Mom transfer the foundation to you? Silence. Calanthe. No. You're sure? Yes. Because I have a document with her signature. Another pause. I've never seen that. I sent her the photograph. She opened it. Then she called me back. Her voice was different. Where did you get this? Someone sent it. Who? I don't know. Isolde, delete it. What? Delete the message. Why? Because I don't know who sent it. That's exactly why I'm keeping it. She lowered her voice. I signed something 6 weeks ago. My stomach tightened. What did you sign? Marek said it was a board acceptance form. For what? He said Mom wanted me to take a larger role in the foundation. Did you read it? Yes. And it didn't say I was taking control. Did you give it back to Marek? Yes. When? That same day. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. Calanthe, listen to me. Don't sign anything else. I won't. And don't tell Marek we know. Why? Because whoever sent me that document thinks he's involved. My sister said nothing. Then she whispered, I was afraid you were going to say that. What do you mean? Yesterday, Marek asked me whether you had contacted Mom. I froze. What did you tell him? That you hadn't. Good. Isolde. Yes. I think he was relieved. I left the coffee shop. By the time I reached my car, another message had arrived. This time there was no photograph. Only an address. Bellwether County Records Office. And beneath it, ask for the filings under Sable Administrative Holdings. I drove there the next morning. The county records building smelled of old paper and floor cleaner. A clerk named Nessa will help me search the corporate database. She was in her 50s, with short gray hair and narrow glasses. She had worked with non-profit records for years and seemed to recognize my mother's name immediately. You're Elspeth Vale's daughter. Yes. Which one? Isolde. She looked at my face. For a second, her expression changed. You look like your father. I almost smiled. That seems to be the theme this week. Nessa didn't laugh. Instead, she turned her monitor toward me. Sable Administrative Holdings. Marek's name appeared as director. The company had been registered 8 months before he started working for my mother. I stared at the screen. He told Mom he had been doing non-profit administration for years. He may have, Nessa said. But this company is older than his employment with your mother. Can we see what it does? We can see what it claims to do. She opened another record. Consulting. Financial administration. Charitable event management. I felt uneasy. Does my mother's foundation pay this company? Nessa searched. Then she stopped. Yes. How much? She printed the transactions. I looked at the total. My mouth went dry. It was far more money than I expected. What are these payments for? That's what I don't know. Can you show me the invoices? Not here. She hesitated. Then she lowered her voice. If you want my advice, don't confront your mother yet. Why? Because someone has been trying to change the foundation's banking authority. I stared at her. Who? I don't know. Can you find out? I can find out who submitted the request. She searched again. The printer started running. 1 page. Then another. Nessa read the first line. Her expression hardened. Is sold. What? This request would remove your mother as an authorized signer. Who would replace her? Nessa looked at me. Your sister. I felt the room go quiet. Calanthe had told me she knew nothing about the transfer. Now her name appeared on a request that would give her control of the foundation. I called her immediately. She answered. What happened? Did you submit a banking change request? No. Calanthe, I'm serious. I didn't. Your name is on it. She went silent. Then she said something that made the blood drain from my face. Isolde, I think someone has been using my signature too. I looked at Nessa. She was already reaching for another file. Why? I asked my sister. I don't know. Think. I am thinking. Then Calanthe whispered. Mirek told me Mom was getting confused lately. I frowned. What? He said she was making mistakes with money. When? About a month ago. And you believed him? I didn't know what to believe. Why didn't you tell me? Because Mom told me not to. Why? She said you would overreact. I closed my eyes. My mother had excluded me. Mirek had warned my sister about me. Someone had forged documents using both my mother's and my sister's names. And the birthday was only a few weeks away. Then Nessa looked at the final page she had printed. Her face had gone completely pale. What? I asked. She turned the paper toward me. The document was dated 2 months earlier. It appeared to appoint Mirek Sable as temporary trustee of the Vale Community Fund. The witness signature belonged to Dr. Silas Venn. I knew that name. Everyone in my family did. Silas Venn had been my mother's physician. He had also been dead for 3 years. I looked at Nessa. That signature is impossible. She nodded. I know. My phone rang. My mother. I answered. Mom. Her voice was shaking. Isolde, where are you? At the county records office. There was a long silence. Then she said, Come to the library. Why? I found something. What? I think someone has been using my name. My grip tightened around the phone. Who? I don't know. Her voice dropped. But I just found a document with a signature I never made. I looked at Nessa. She was staring at me. Then my mother said the one thing I had never expected to hear. And Isolde. Yes. Please come alone. I swallowed. Why? Because I don't know who I can trust anymore. The call ended. For the first time since receiving that invitation, I stopped thinking about being excluded from my mother's birthday. I started wondering whether the birthday itself had been designed to make sure I stayed away. And if that was true, someone had a reason for wanting me nowhere near my mother when she turned 60. My mother had never asked me to meet her alone before. That was the first thing I thought about as I drove toward the Bellwether Cove Library. The second was the forged document in my passenger seat. It appointed Mirek Sable as temporary trustee of the Vale Community Fund. The witness signature belonged to Dr. Silas Venn, a man who had been dead for 3 years. I kept looking at the folder at every red light. By the time I reached the library, I had already decided I would not accuse anyone until I knew what my mother had found. The library's rear meeting room was empty except for her. Elspeth Vale sat at a long wooden table with both hands wrapped around a cup of untouched tea. She looked older than she had 3 days earlier. Her silver hair was pulled back loosely, and there were dark circles beneath her eyes. When she saw me, she stood. You came alone. You asked me to. She looked toward the hallway. Close the door. I did. My mother waited until I sat down. Then she placed a folder on the table. I found this in my bedroom. I opened it. Inside were copies of bank statements, foundation correspondence, and several authorization forms. Some carried her signature. Some carried Calanthe's. I recognized the same handwriting from the document Nessa had shown me. What is this? I don't know. You signed these. No. Any of them? She shook her head. I looked at the dates. The earliest was 8 months ago. The latest was 2 weeks ago. Mom, how did you not notice? She flinched. I did notice that the foundation had more paperwork than usual. That isn't what I asked. She looked at me. I trusted Mirek. The words came quietly. I leaned back. So did I. No, you didn't. Not exactly. She gave me a tired look. You never liked him. I didn't know why. I thought you were being suspicious because he reminded you of the men your father worked with. That caught my attention. What men? She hesitated. Then she opened another folder. Inside was an old photograph. My father stood beside a man I didn't recognize. The photograph had been taken at the harbor. My father was smiling. The other man wasn't. Who is that? Dorian Pell. The name meant something. I had heard my mother mention it when I was young. But whenever I asked, she changed the subject. Dad's business partner? Former business partner. What happened? She folded her hands. Your father accused him of stealing from one of his companies. And was he? I believed he was. You don't anymore. My mother stared at the photograph. I'm not sure what I believe anymore. That answer frightened me more than the forged documents. My mother had spent 11 years telling me exactly what happened to my father. Roderick had been difficult. Roderick had been secretive. Roderick had hurt her. Roderick had died before he could explain himself. Now she sounded uncertain about all of it. What changed? I found one of her father's letters. Where? In the old house. Why didn't you show me? I was afraid. Of what? She looked at me. Of discovering that I had been wrong. I didn't know what to say. 4 years, I had watched my mother build her life around one conclusion. My father had betrayed her. And because I looked like him, some part of her had never stopped seeing his betrayal when she looked at me. Now that certainty was cracking. She pushed the letter toward me. The paper was yellowed. The handwriting was unmistakable. My father's. I read the first lines. Elspeth, if Dorian disappears, do not assume he ran. Someone inside the charitable accounts has been moving money without our approval. I looked up. What? My mother nodded. Keep reading. The letter described several suspicious transfers made through organizations connected to Roderick's business. My father had apparently believed someone was using charitable accounts to conceal money. Then I reached the final paragraph. I don't think Dorian is behind it. My hand stopped moving. My mother whispered. That's what I found. Did Dad say who was responsible? No. Why not? He said he needed more evidence. When was this written? 3 days before he died. I looked at her. You never knew about this? No. Then why did you blame Dorian? Because after your father died, I found documents that appeared to prove Dorian had been taking money. And you believe them? Yes. Who gave them to you? My mother didn't answer. That was enough. Mirek. She closed her eyes. I don't know. You do know. I know Mirek helped me organize everything after your father died. I stood. So he had access to the documents. Yes. And now he has access to the foundation. Yes. And you've been letting him manage your paperwork for years. My mother looked ashamed. I thought he was helping me. I walked to the window. Outside, children were leaving the library. Everything looked normal. That made it worse. What exactly did you find today? My mother reached into her handbag. She pulled out a small key. This was taped underneath the drawer in my bedroom. What does it open? I don't know. You found a key and didn't try it. I was afraid. I took it. Where did you find it? Behind an old photograph. The photograph of Dad? She nodded. I remember that picture. It had always hung in the hallway. The same one where my father held me. I suddenly understood why she had been looking through old belongings. Someone had been searching the house. Or my mother had finally started searching for answers. We returned to the house together. The afternoon had turned gray by the time we arrived. My mother unlocked the front door. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. She led me upstairs. The photograph still hung in the hallway. I removed it. Behind it was a small metal panel. The key fit. The panel opened. Inside was a narrow compartment. There was nothing there except an old cassette tape. I stared at it. My mother covered her mouth. I didn't know that was there. Did Dad use tapes? Sometimes. We found an old cassette player in the attic. It took several attempts before it worked. Then a man's voice filled the room. My father's. If you're hearing this, something went wrong. My mother sat down. I remained standing. The recording continued. I don't know who will find this. Elspeth, if it's you, don't trust the documents I left on the desk. Some of them are false. My mother whispered. No. The tape continued. I believe someone has access to the foundation's records. There was a pause. Then my father's voice became quieter. I believe Mirek Sable knows more than he has admitted. My mother looked at me. The room suddenly felt very small. The recording continued. Mirek isn't working alone. Then the tape stopped. My mother stared at the cassette. That's it. I rewound it. Nothing. The tape ended there. Who else? I asked. I don't know. My mother looked genuinely terrified. Then I noticed something. The cassette had a handwritten label. Not my father's handwriting. A date. And beneath it, 2 initials. MS. I felt my stomach tighten. Mirek Sable. My mother nodded. But before either of us could speak, someone knocked downstairs. 3 slow knocks. My mother froze. Did you invite anyone? No. We went downstairs. Another knock. I moved toward the door. My mother grabbed my arm. Wait! The knock came again. I looked through the glass. Mirek stood on the porch. He was holding a leather portfolio. He smiled when he saw me. It's sold. I opened the door only halfway. What are you doing here? I came to speak with your mother. About what? Her birthday arrangements. I almost laughed. You're worried about the birthday? I've been organizing it for months. Then you must know I'm not invited. His expression barely changed. Your mother made that decision. I know. He looked past me. May I come in? No. His eyes moved to my mother. Mrs. Vale. She stepped forward. Why are you here, Mirek? He lifted the portfolio. I need your signature. My mother didn't move. On what? A temporary administrative authorization. She looked at me. I looked at him. Why? Because the foundation has become difficult to manage. My mother frowned. I didn't authorize anything like that. Mirek's smile disappeared. You did. No. He opened the portfolio. A document appeared. My mother's signature was at the bottom. I stepped closer. It was the same forged signature. Mirek, I said. Who witnessed this? He looked at me. That's none of your concern. It's my mother's foundation. It's not your foundation. My mother took the document. Her hands began to shake. I never signed this. Mirek sighed. You've been under tremendous stress. My mother stared at him. What did you say? I said you're tired. You think I'm confused. I think you should rest. His voice was gentle. Too gentle. It was the voice someone used when they wanted other people to believe they were being reasonable. My mother looked at me. I could see the anger replacing her fear. Leave. Mirek didn't move. Mrs. Vale. Leave my house. He slowly closed the portfolio. Then he looked at me. You've always made things harder. I stepped toward him. What did you mean by that? He smiled. Ask your mother about your father. Then he walked away. I watched him cross the yard. My mother closed the door. What did he mean? She didn't answer. Mom. She walked toward the kitchen. Not tonight. No. She stopped. I'm done being kept outside. She turned around. Her face was pale. You think I wanted to keep you outside? You excluded me from your birthday. Because I thought you would be in danger. I froze. What? She looked toward the window. Mirek asked me one question before I sent the invitations. What question? She swallowed. He asked whether you would be attending. My heart started pounding. Why would he care? I asked him that. And he said he was worried about conflict. That isn't the truth. No. She looked at me. I don't think it was. That night, I slept at my mother's house. Neither of us slept much. The next morning, Calanthe arrived. She was carrying a folder. I found something. She placed it on the kitchen table. Inside were copies of emails between her and Mirek. One message was from 6 weeks earlier. If a soul becomes involved, the transfer will become difficult. I looked at my sister. What transfer? Calanthe shook her head. I don't know. There has to be more. There is. She opened another page. Mirek had written, Your mother must believe this is her decision. I looked at my mother. She had gone completely still. Then Calanthe said, There's one more thing. She removed a printed email. It had been sent from an address registered to Mirek. The recipient was unknown. The subject line read, Birthday plan. I read the message. It was short. Once the family is separated, Elspeth will sign. Keep Isolde away until then. I looked at my mother. The birthday was 3 weeks away. And suddenly I understood. My exclusion had never been about my father's face. My father's face was simply the excuse Mirek had given my mother. The real reason he wanted me gone was much more dangerous. He needed my mother isolated, and he had been planning that isolation long before the invitations were mailed. But there was one sentence at the bottom of the email that none of us had noticed. Calanthe read it aloud. "Make sure Calla signs before the party." She looked up. "Who is Calla?" My mother stared at the screen. Then her face changed. "That's not my nickname." I felt a chill run through me, because there was only one person in our family who had ever been called Calla. My sister. And she had already told us she had never agreed to take control of the foundation. Someone was preparing to make it look as though she had. Calanthe read the sentence again. "Make sure Calla signs before the party." Nobody spoke. My sister's nickname had always been Calla. Only family and a few childhood friends used it. Marek knew it because my mother had called her that for years. But the email changed everything. Someone had not simply planned to transfer the foundation. They had planned to make Calanthe appear responsible for the transfer. My sister sat down slowly. "I never agreed to become trustee." "I know," I said. "But I did sign something." My mother looked at her. "What exactly did you sign?" Calanthe opened her folder. "A board acceptance form." "Show me." She handed it over. The document looked ordinary. Her name was printed correctly. Her signature was at the bottom. There was one problem. The signature was not hers. Calanthe stared at it. "I thought it was." "You signed something," I said. "Yes. But not this." She shook her head. "No." My mother picked up the paper. "I remember this meeting." "When?" 6 weeks ago." "Where?" "Here." She pointed toward the dining room. Marek brought several documents. He told me the foundation needed updated governance records. "Who else was here?" "No one." I looked at Calanthe. "You were alone with him?" "For about 20 minutes." "Did he leave the documents with you?" "No. He took them back." That explained how someone could have replaced the pages. But it raised another question. "Why didn't he ask you to sign the actual transfer?" Calanthe frowned. "I think he did." My mother looked at her. "What?" "He said there was one final page." I refused because I hadn't read it. My stomach tightened. "Then why does this have your signature?" "I don't know." I took the paper from her. There was a small crease near the bottom corner. It looked as though another page had been attached to it. Someone had separated the signature page from a different document and attached it to this one. I looked at my mother. "This isn't just a forged signature." "What do you mean?" "Someone is assembling documents from real pieces." Calanthe understood immediately. "They could make it look like we signed anything." "Exactly." My mother stood. "We need to call the police." I stopped her. "Not yet." She stared at me. "Why?" "Because we still don't know who else is involved. We know enough about Marek. Enough to accuse him. Not enough to understand the whole operation." Calanthe looked toward the window. "He has been working for you for 7 years." "I know." "And he knows everything about the foundation." "I know." My mother looked exhausted. Then the phone in her pocket rang. She answered. "Hello." Her expression changed. "Who is this?" She listened. Then she handed the phone to me. A man's voice said, "You need to stop looking into the records." "Who are you?" "You don't need to know." "You called my mother." "I called because your father made the same mistake." I stood. "What mistake?" "Trusting evidence without understanding who created it." The line went dead. Calanthe stared at me. "Was that Marek?" "No." "Then who?" "I don't know." That was the first moment I realized Marek might not be the person at the top. He could be the person standing in front of the door while someone else emptied the house. Later that afternoon, we drove to Nessa Quill's office. She had already pulled the foundation's historical filings. The office was inside the county records building, surrounded by shelves of paper files and old computers. Nessa looked at the three of us. "You found something." "We found a plan to transfer the foundation," I said. "That's not the only thing." She turned her monitor toward us. I traced the original banking authorization. A list of names appeared. My mother's, my father's, and one unfamiliar name. Elias Venn. My mother frowned. "Who is that?" Nessa clicked the record. Elias Venn was the brother of Silas Venn. "Silas was Mom's doctor," Calanthe said. "Yes." "Why would his brother be on Dad's foundation account?" Nessa looked at my mother. "That is what I was hoping you could explain." My mother shook her head. "I've never heard of him." Nessa opened another file. "Elias was added as an emergency financial advisor 11 years ago." When? 3 weeks before Roderick died. I looked at my mother. Did Dad tell you? No. Then who added him? Nessa scrolled down. The authorization was submitted by Roderick himself. My mother went pale. That can't be. Why? Because he was already ill. Nessa looked at the date. He was alive. But he was in the hospital. I stared at the screen. My father had been in the hospital when this authorization was supposedly submitted. Nessa checked the signature. It was electronically filed. Could someone have used his account? Yes. Who had access? She looked at my mother. I don't know. The room became silent. Then Nessa said, "There is something else." She opened the original foundation account history. One transaction appeared every year around the same date. A payment to a company called Harbor Meridian. The amount was almost identical each time. What's Harbor Meridian? Nessa shook her head. That's the problem. She searched the business registry. The company had been dissolved 11 years ago. The same month my father died. I felt a cold sensation in my chest. Can you see who owned it? Nessa opened the record. Dorian Pell. My mother closed her eyes. Of course. I looked at her. What? This is why I blamed him. She spoke slowly. After your father died, I found Harbor Meridian in the foundation records. I thought Dorian had been using the foundation, but he didn't. I don't know. Nessa zoomed in on the payment dates. Wait! She pointed. The last payment to Harbor Meridian occurred 2 days after my father's death. My mother looked stunned. Who authorized that? Nessa opened the transaction. The authorization code belonged to Mirek Sable. I felt my pulse increase. Mirek had been involved from the beginning. But then Nessa noticed something. This code was created before Mirek started working for the foundation. I stared at her. What? She checked again. The authorization code was 11 years old. Mirek had supposedly joined my mother 3 years later. My mother whispered, "That isn't possible." Nessa didn't answer. She printed the transaction history. There was a second name attached to the code. Not Mirek. Elias Venn. My sister stood. So Silas's brother was connected to Dad's foundation. Yes, Nessa said. And someone used his credentials later? Apparently. I looked at my mother. Did you know Elias? No. Did Dad? She shook her head. I don't know. We left the records office just before sunset. On the drive home, nobody spoke. When we reached my mother's house, Calanthe went inside. I remained in the driveway. Something didn't feel right. I looked at the upstairs windows. One of them was open. Mom! No answer. I ran inside. Calanthe was standing in the hallway. What happened? The bedroom. We rushed upstairs. The room had been searched. Drawers were open. Clothes had been thrown onto the floor. The mattress had been moved. The wall panel behind the photograph was open. The cassette was gone. My mother arrived behind us. She stared at the room. He came back. Who? Mirek. How do you know? He knew about the compartment. How? She shook her head. I never told him. I looked at the empty panel. Someone had entered the house looking for evidence, and they knew exactly where to find it. Then I noticed something on the floor. A small silver cufflink. I picked it up. There were 3 letters engraved inside. MS. Calanthe stared. Mirek. My mother reached for her phone. I am calling the police. Wait. What now? I held up the cufflink. This is too obvious. What do you mean? If Mirek searched the room, why leave his cufflink behind? Calanthe looked at me. Maybe he dropped it. Maybe. But I didn't believe it. We searched the room again. This time, I noticed a second object beneath the bed. A small black flash drive. I picked it up. There was no label. My mother looked at me. Don't open it here. Why? If someone planted it, they may be waiting for us to use it. That was reasonable. We took it to Nessa the following morning. She opened it on an isolated computer. There were 27 files, foundation invoices, bank statements, scanned contracts, emails, and one folder named Roderick. My hands went cold. Nessa opened it. Inside was a video. My father sat at a desk. He looked tired, older than I remembered. He was speaking directly to the camera. If this recording is being viewed by my daughters, I need you to understand one thing. I leaned closer. This is not about money. My mother began crying. My father continued. It is about who gets control when I am gone. The recording paused briefly. Then he said something that changed the entire story. Elspeth will believe I betrayed her. My mother covered her mouth. I need her to know that I didn't. My father's eyes moved toward something outside the frame. Then he lowered his voice. The person I fear is not Marek. The video stopped. Nessa tried to restart it. Nothing. It's corrupted, she said. There has to be another copy. I'll check. My mother was staring at the frozen image of my father. What did he mean? I didn't know. But then Nessa opened another file. It was an old scanned letter. The sender was Roderick Vale. The recipient was Dorian Pell. The date was 3 days before my father's death. The message contained only one sentence. If they come for Elspeth, take my daughters and leave Bellwether. I read it twice. Who are they? Nessa looked at me. I don't know. Calanthe shook her head. Why would Dad think someone would come for Mom? My mother whispered. Because he knew something was going to happen. Then her phone rang. She answered. Her face changed. Who is this? A woman's voice came through the speaker. We could hear it clearly. My name is Ria Venn. My mother sat down. What do you want? I need to tell you what my father did. Silence. Ria continued. Silas Venn did not die 3 years ago without leaving records. My mother looked at me. What records? Records about Marek. My heart started pounding. Ria took a breath. And records about your husband's death. The line went silent. Then she added one final sentence. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow at the old ferry terminal. The call ended. Nobody moved. Because for the first time, we had found someone connected to the dead doctor whose signature had been forged. And she claimed her father had kept records about my father's death. But there was something else. Someone had already searched my mother's house for those records, which meant whoever had been controlling the story for 11 years might know that Ria had decided to talk. And suddenly, meeting her at the ferry terminal didn't feel like an appointment. It felt like a race. The old ferry terminal had been closed for almost a decade, but the lights above the ticket booth still worked. I arrived 20 minutes early. My mother and Calanthe were waiting at Nessa's office. We had agreed that nobody would approach the terminal until I knew whether Ria Venn was telling the truth. At 10:07, a gray sedan stopped near the pier. A woman stepped out. She looked about 35, with dark hair tied back and a brown coat buttoned to her throat. She carried a canvas bag. Ria Venn. I got out of my car. She saw me and immediately looked toward the road. You came alone? Yes. Your mother? Safe. She seemed relieved. Then she said, We don't have much time. What are you afraid of? My father. I frowned. Your father is dead. I know. She opened the canvas bag. Before she could show me anything, an engine started behind us. Ria grabbed my arm. Get inside. We ran into the terminal. The building smelled of dust, salt, and old fuel. Ria pulled me behind an abandoned ticket counter. The gray sedan moved slowly past the windows. Neither of us spoke until it disappeared. Who was that? I whispered. I don't know. You called me here. I know. You said you had records. I do. She pulled out a small envelope. My father was not the person everyone thought he was. Inside were photocopies of medical records, bank transfers, and handwritten notes. One name appeared repeatedly. Marek Sable. I looked at her. How did your father know Marek? My father treated him after an accident. What accident? A warehouse fire. She handed me a hospital record. The patient was listed as M. Sable. The injury was smoke inhalation and burns to the left hand. I remember the scar on Marek's hand. When? 3 weeks before your father died. Where? Harbor Meridian. My stomach tightened. That was Dorian Pell's company. Ria continued. My father believed Marek had been caught stealing financial records. From Harbor Meridian? Yes. And my father knew? He confronted Marek. How do you know? My father recorded the conversation. She took out a cassette. What did they say? Your father accused Marek of using a second set of accounts. What accounts? I don't know. And Marek? He said Roderick was already too late. Too late for what? Ria looked at me. The transfer had already happened. My heart started pounding. What transfer? I don't know. She lowered her voice. My father believed the money wasn't the real target. What was? Control. A metal door slammed somewhere inside the terminal. We both froze. Then a man's voice came from the corridor. Ria! I knew that voice. Mirek. You brought us old, he called. Ria grabbed the cassette. How does he know we're here? I don't know. Mirek continued. Your father would be disappointed. We ran toward the rear exit. The door opened onto the pier. We climbed over a low railing and dropped onto the sand. A black SUV suddenly accelerated toward us. I pulled Ria aside. The vehicle passed without stopping. It wasn't Mirek's car. Someone else was watching. We reached my car and locked the doors. Ria was shaking. You understand now? Yes. Then don't take me back to Nessa. Why? They know about her. How? My father kept a second set of records with a lawyer. Who? Gideon Rusk. I knew the name. He had represented several shipping companies in Bellwether Cove. We drove to his house outside town. Gideon opened the door before we knocked. He was in his 70s, thin, gray-haired, and visibly unsurprised to see us. You're Roderick's daughter, he said. Yes. You look exactly like him. I almost laughed. Everyone says that. Gideon didn't smile. Come inside. His office was filled with old legal files. He locked the door behind us. Then he opened a cabinet and removed a metal box. Your father left this with me. Inside was a sealed envelope. My name was written on it. For Isolde, if Elspeth still believes I betrayed me. My hands tightened around the paper. Why me? Because your father believed you would question what everyone else accepted. I opened it. The letter was short. Isolde, if you're reading this, the story your mother told you about my final days is incomplete. I did not betray her. I did not steal from the Foundation. Dorian Pell did not steal from the Foundation either. The person who did it has access to someone inside the family. I looked up. Who? Gideon shook his head. Your father hadn't confirmed it. I read on. If anything happens to me, watch the birthday. My eyes stopped on the words. The birthday. Gideon nodded. He believed someone would use a family event to complete the transfer. My mother's 60th birthday. Suddenly, Mirek's interest in the guest list made sense. The birthday wasn't simply a celebration. It was a deadline. I continued reading. If Elspeth excludes Isolde, don't blame her. Someone will convince her that Isolde is dangerous. My chest tightened. My mother had not invented the reason for excluding me. Someone had planted it, and my father had predicted it 11 years ago. Then I found another sheet. A list of names. Dorian Pell, Mirek Sable, Silas Venn, Elias Venn, and finally, Elspeth Vale. I stared at my mother's name. Why is she here? Gideon answered carefully. Your father suspected she might unknowingly sign the final document. Ria looked at the list. There was another page. Gideon nodded. He removed a photograph from the box. It showed my mother standing outside the Harbor Meridian warehouse. Beside her was Mirek. The date was the day before my father died. I stared at it. My mother had told me she didn't know Mirek until years after Dad's death. But there she was, standing beside him. And she wasn't alone. A younger girl stood several feet behind them. I recognized her immediately. Calanthe, my sister. She had been 18. My hands went cold. Why was Calanthe there? Ria shook her head. I've never seen that photograph. Gideon looked at me. Your father had it. Why didn't you show my mother? He told me not to. Why? Because he believed the photograph would destroy your family before he had proof. I turned it over. There was writing on the back. The transfer is not money. Below it was another sentence. It is ownership of the Vale name. I looked at Gideon. What does that mean? I don't know. Before I could ask anything else, my phone rang. My mother. I answered. Mom. Her voice was shaking. Isolde, where are you? With Gideon. A long silence followed. Then she whispered. Do not come home. Why? Mirek is here. My stomach tightened. Is he alone? No. Who is with him? My mother began crying. I don't know her. Then I heard another woman's voice in the background. Come. Familiar. Tell Isolde I said hello. I froze. I knew that voice. I had not heard it since I was 18. My mother whispered the name. Seraphine. The call ended. I stared at the phone. Calanthe had been at the warehouse the day before our father died. Mirek had been there. My mother had been there. And now Seraphine was back. Seraphine Vale had been my father's younger sister. She had disappeared from our lives immediately after his funeral. My mother had always told us she left because she blamed everyone for Roderick's death. But if she was now standing inside my mother's house with Marek, then she had not disappeared. She had been waiting. I stood. We're going back. Ria grabbed my sleeve. You heard your mother. She told me not to come home. Exactly. She sounded terrified. Gideon rose from his chair. If Seraphine is involved, you cannot walk into that house without knowing what she wants. I looked at him. She knows my mother. She knows your father. And apparently she knows why I was excluded. Gideon sighed. There is one thing your father never told your mother. What? He believed Seraphine knew about the foundation transfer. I stared at him. Why? Because she was the person who introduced Marek to your father. That was the twist I had not expected. Marek had not entered our lives through my mother. He had entered through my father's sister. And suddenly, the entire story looked different. The forged documents, the birthday, the old photograph, the missing cassette, my father's warning, my sister's mysterious presence at the warehouse. All of it might be connected. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared. You have until your mother's birthday. A second message followed. After that, the foundation belongs to us. I looked at the screen. Then another message arrived. Ask Calanthe what she saw the night your father died. I stopped breathing. Because whoever had sent that message knew about my sister. And if they were telling the truth, Calanthe had been hiding something from us for 11 years. For the first time, I wasn't afraid that my mother had chosen my sister over me. I was afraid that someone had chosen both of us for a role in a plan that began before either of us understood what was happening. Calanthe was waiting for me when I returned to my mother's house. She stood in the kitchen with her arms folded, staring at the floor. My mother was sitting at the table. Seraphine was gone. Marek was gone. But the room felt as if they had never left. I closed the door. Calanthe. She looked up. Her face told me everything before she said a word. You know. She swallowed. Know what? What happened the night Dad died? My mother stood. Isolde, don't. I turned toward her. Someone just sent me a message telling me to ask Calanthe what she saw that night. Calanthe closed her eyes. I didn't want to tell you. Why? Because Dad made me promise. He was dying. I know. Then why keep his secret for 11 years? She looked at our mother. Because he told me it would destroy you both. I stared at her. Tell me. Calanthe pulled out a chair. I was 18. I know. I had gone to the harbor because Dad asked me to bring him some papers. What papers? I don't remember. You don't remember? I remember the envelope. I don't remember what was inside. She took a breath. It was late. Around 11. My mother sat down again. What happened when you arrived? I saw Dad arguing with someone. Who? Marek. My chest tightened. What were they arguing about? Money. Was Dad angry? No. That surprised me. He was scared. I looked at her. Dad was scared. Yes. What did Marek say? I couldn't hear everything. Then what did you hear? Calanthe looked at me. He said, you should have listened to Seraphine. My mother went pale. I felt the room shift. What did Dad say? He told Marek to leave. And then, I saw another car. Whose? Seraphine's. My mother's hands tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Because Dad told me not to. Why would he tell an 18-year-old not to tell her own mother? Because he said Mom would confront Seraphine. My mother whispered. I would have. Calanthe nodded. He said that was exactly why. I sat down. What happened next? Seraphine got out of the car. She and Dad argued. About what? The foundation. My heart began pounding. What did she want? I don't know. You were there. I was hiding. Where? Behind the warehouse office. She looked ashamed. I was scared. I reached across the table. You were 18. I know. She continued. Then Dad handed Seraphine a folder. What folder? I don't know. What happened to it? She took it. Then, she told Dad that if he didn't sign, everything would collapse. My mother stared at her. Sign what? Calanthe shook her head. I don't know. Did Dad sign? No. How do you know? Because he tore the paper. I felt a chill. What happened after that? Marek walked toward him. Calanthe's voice became quieter. Then I heard a crash. What kind of crash? A metal container fell. Then I ran. She stopped. I waited. Calanthe. I saw Dad on the ground. My mother covered her mouth. Was he alive? Yes. What did he say? He looked at me. Her eyes filled with tears. He told me to run. I could barely breathe. Did you? Yes. Where? Home. You left him there? I was 18. Her voice broke. I was terrified. I reached for her hand. I know. She cried quietly. I thought I killed him. You didn't. I should have called someone. You were a child. I wasn't. You were. She wiped her face. What happened next? I went home. And Mom. She was asleep. My mother looked confused. I wasn't asleep. Calanthe looked at her. You were in the bedroom. I remember going to bed. No. Calanthe shook her head. You weren't asleep. What do you mean? I saw you downstairs. My mother's face changed. When? After I came home. Why? I heard voices. Whose? Mirek's. The room went silent. My mother stared at her. Mirek was here? Yes. When? About an hour after I came home. I stood. That means Mirek left the warehouse and came here. Calanthe nodded. What did he say? He told Mom that Dad had left. My mother's eyes widened. He told me Roderick was going to stay with Dorian. Calanthe looked at her. That was a lie. My mother pressed a hand to her forehead. I remember. You believed him. I didn't know. Calanthe continued. Mirek told you not to call Dad because he needed time to calm down. My mother whispered. I remember that too. And then he left. I looked at Calanthe. Did you tell Mom what you saw? No. Why? Because Dad told me to run. I understood. She had spent 11 years carrying a secret she believed would destroy our family. But there was another problem. My father had been alive when Calanthe left him. Someone had reached him afterward. Someone had moved the story forward. Someone had convinced my mother he had gone away. And that person had been Mirek. I called Nessa. She answered immediately. We found something. So did we. I told her everything. There was silence. Then she said, You need to come here. We drove to her office. Nessa had found an old emergency call log from the harbor. At 11:42 p.m., someone called for medical assistance. The caller was anonymous. The location was Harbor Meridian. My father was transported to the hospital at 11:51. My mother stared at the record. But he died at the hospital. Yes, Nessa said. When? 2:18 a.m. My mother closed her eyes. I was told he died immediately. Nessa looked at her. Who told you? Mirek. I felt sick. Nessa opened another record. The hospital admission form listed Roderick's emergency contact. Not my mother. Not Calanthe. Not me. Seraphine. My mother stared at the name. Why was she listed? Nessa shook her head. I don't know. But she wasn't at the hospital, Calanthe said. According to the record, she was... What? Nessa pointed to the visitor log. Seraphine arrived at 12:16 a.m. She left at 1:57. My mother looked stunned. She was with him. Yes. And she never told us. No. I felt angry. Why? Nessa opened another file. A handwritten note had been attached to the hospital records. Patient requested that no family be contacted. The handwriting belonged to my father. My mother stared at it. That isn't his handwriting. Nessa nodded. I thought so too. Then she compared it with an old letter. The handwriting wasn't even close. Someone had forged a note preventing the hospital from contacting my mother. And someone had made sure Seraphine was the only family member there. I looked at Calanthe. What happened to Dad after you left? She shook her head. I don't know. We returned to the old warehouse that evening. Dorian had come back to Bellwether Cove after hearing about the investigation. He met us outside Harbor Meridian. The building was abandoned. Its windows were broken. The old sign was barely visible. Dorian looked at Calanthe. You were there. She nodded. I saw you. He looked at me. Your father trusted me. Why did everyone think you betrayed him? Because Mirek made sure they did. What happened that night? Dorian looked toward the building. Roderick found the real account. What account? The one showing where the foundation money was going. Where? He hesitated. Into a private trust. Whose? Seraphine's. My mother stepped forward. That can't be. Dorian looked at her. Your sister had been receiving money from the foundation for years. My mother shook her head. She never told me. She didn't have to. What did Dad know? He discovered it 2 weeks before he died. And Mirek helped move the money. I felt my stomach tighten. So Seraphine was the person behind it? Dorian shook his head. No. I frowned. Then who? Dorian looked at Calanthe. Ask your sister. We all turned toward her. Calanthe went pale. What? Dorian said. Your father believed Seraphine was being used too. By whom? He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward the old warehouse. There's a room underneath this building. My mother looked confused. There's no basement. There is. Dorian walked to a rusted metal door. He pulled it open. A narrow staircase disappeared into darkness. We followed. At the bottom was a small office. Old filing cabinets lined the walls. Dorian opened one. Inside were copies of foundation records. My father's handwriting appeared on several pages. One note was dated the night he died. If I don't survive, the person controlling the trust is not Seraphine. I read the sentence twice. Who? Dorian shook his head. He never wrote the name. Then I found another document. A beneficiary form. The primary beneficiary was not Seraphine. Not Mirek. Not Dorian. It was Calanthe. My sister stepped backward. No. I looked at her. Why would Dad name you? I don't know. My mother picked up the paper. Calanthe was 18. I know. The beneficiary designation had been filed 1 day before Roderick died. The signature was his, but the witness was Elias Venn, the same man whose credentials had appeared in the old foundation records. I looked at Calanthe. Did Dad ever tell you he changed the beneficiary? No. Did you know about this trust? No. Then Dorian found something else. A letter addressed to my mother. The date was 11 years old. She opened it. Her hands trembled. The first line read, Elspeth, if Calanthe becomes the beneficiary, do not let anyone convince you that she chose this. My mother looked at my sister, then at me. The rest of the letter contained one final warning. The person behind this is someone both girls trust. Nobody spoke, because the list of people we trusted had become very short, and there was one name we had not questioned yet. Not Mirek, not Seraphine, not Elias, someone much closer. Someone who had been beside us on the night my father died. Someone who had been hiding the truth for 11 years. My sister. Calanthe looked at me. I swear I don't know anything about that trust. I wanted to believe her, but then I remember the message from the unknown number. Ask Calanthe what she saw the night your father died. They had known she was hiding something. They had known exactly where to push. And now, standing beneath the warehouse where my father had been attacked, I realized the person controlling the story might not need Calanthe to be guilty. They only needed us to believe she was. For 11 years, I had believed the worst thing my mother had done was exclude me because I looked like my father. I was wrong. The worst thing was that grief had made every one of us easy to manipulate, and whoever had built the scheme around my family knew exactly where every weakness was. We were still standing in the underground room beneath Harbor Meridian when Calanthe suddenly reached into her coat. I tensed. She pulled out a folded piece of paper. I've had this since the night Dad died. My mother stared at her. What is it? I don't know. Why didn't you show us? Because I was afraid. She unfolded it. The paper was stained and creased. At the top was my father's handwriting. Calanthe, if you ever have to choose between protecting the family and telling the truth, tell the truth. My sister's hands shook. I found it in Dad's jacket the next morning. I looked at her. Then why hide it? Because there was another note. She reached into the envelope. A second paper appeared. It wasn't my father's handwriting. If you tell Elspeth, Isolde will be blamed. My mother went pale. Who wrote that? I don't know. You kept it for 11 years? Yes. Why? Calanthe looked at me. Because every time Mom looked at you, she saw Dad. I was terrified that if I told her what happened, she would think you had known something. I felt my throat tighten. You thought I was involved? No. Then what? I thought someone would make her believe I was. That answer finally made sense. The scheme had never depended on one of us being guilty. It depended on us distrusting each other. I took the note. There was no signature. but in the bottom corner was a small symbol. A circle crossed by 2 lines. Dorian recognized it. That belonged to the Vale Family Trust. What does it mean? It was used on private documents before the foundation existed. My mother looked at him. Who had access? Your father. Anyone else? Dorian hesitated. Seraphine. We returned upstairs. By then, I had stopped assuming that every new clue would lead directly to Mirek. There were too many people. Too many forged documents. Too many years. The birthday was still 4 days away. We had to act before then. Nessa arranged an emergency meeting with the Foundation's independent attorney. His name was Tomas Arvin, a quiet man in his 60s who had never worked directly for Mirek. He reviewed the documents for several hours. Then he said something that changed our strategy. Mirek cannot legally transfer the Foundation. Why not? My mother asked. Because your husband created a restriction. He showed us the original trust agreement. If the Foundation's control changes through fraud, the transfer becomes invalid. So we're safe. No. He looked at Calanthe. Because someone has already tried to make it appear that the change happened voluntarily. How? By creating a chain of documents. He pointed to the papers. First, your mother supposedly authorizes a restructuring. Then Calanthe accepts a board position. Then Mirek becomes temporary trustee. Finally, the trust is transferred. I understood. They don't need one perfect forgery. No, Tomas said. They need enough believable documents that nobody questions the final result. My mother looked at him. What happens if we expose them? They will deny everything. What do we need? An original record that proves the sequence was fabricated. Nessa spoke. We have one. She placed the old hospital records on the table. The forged note preventing the hospital from contacting my mother had been created after Roderick was admitted. That meant someone had already been manipulating records before the Foundation documents were changed. Tomas looked at the handwriting. This can establish a pattern. Not enough for conviction, I said. No. Then what is enough? He looked at me. The person who created the first false document. Nobody spoke. Then my mother said, Seraphine. We found her the next morning. She was staying at a small hotel outside town. When I entered the room, she was standing by the window. She turned. For a moment, I saw my father in her face. Same dark eyes. Same stubborn expression. She looked at me. You really do look like him. I didn't react. I know. She smiled sadly. I used to hate that. So did my mother. I know. Were you involved? Seraphine sat down. With the Foundation. With everything. She looked at the floor. I helped your father. With what? The investigation. That surprised me. You were working with him? Yes. Then why did everyone think you were against him? Because Mirek made sure they did. Why? Because I had evidence. What evidence? She looked at my mother. Elspeth, your husband discovered that someone had created a private trust using Foundation money. My mother nodded. We know. No. You don't. Seraphine opened a folder. The trust wasn't controlled by me. She placed the papers on the table. The beneficiary was a minor at the time. Calanthe. My sister stared at the document. Why me? Because your father wanted to protect you. From what? From the person who controlled the money. Who? Seraphine looked at me. Elias Venn. I felt my stomach tighten. The doctor. Silas Venn was his brother. Elias handled financial records for several businesses in Bellwether. Was he working with Mirek? Yes. Then why did Mirek become the face of everything? Because Elias needed someone who could move freely around your mother. Mirek. Seraphine nodded. He became your mother's trusted administrator. Elias remained hidden. What happened to Elias? He died 6 years ago. Convenient. Seraphine gave me a tired look. Not everything is a conspiracy. I almost laughed. That's a strange thing to say after everything you've told us. She smiled faintly. Fair. My mother asked, why did you never tell me? Because I tried. When? The night Roderick died. My mother froze. I came to the hospital. I know. I told you the truth. You never spoke to me. Mirek intercepted me. My mother stared at her. He told me you were hysterical. Seraphine nodded. He told everyone I had caused Roderick's death. Did you? No. She looked at me. Your father was attacked because he refused to sign the trust transfer. Who attacked him? Mirek. Calanthe closed her eyes. So I saw him. Yes. Why didn't you stop him? I tried. What happened? Roderick fought back. Seraphine's voice broke. Mirek struck him with a metal bar. My mother covered her mouth. And then, Roderick was alive. We know. He told me to take the documents and leave. Why? Because he knew Mirek would come after them. What documents? The original trust. She pulled out another folder. Inside was the original document. The beneficiary was Calanthe. But there was something different. A second page had been attached. I read it carefully. The trust did not give Calanthe control of the foundation. It protected her from it. If anyone attempted to use her name to assume control, the foundation would automatically pass to an independent board. I looked at Tomas. He knew. Yes, Tomas said. My father had designed the trust to prevent exactly what Mirek had been trying to do. But there was one more condition. The trust would activate only if the attempted transfer was publicly challenged. The birthday was the perfect place. We had our answer. We didn't cancel the party. We changed it. 4 days later, the Bellwether Maritime Hall filled with guests. Mirek arrived with the same confidence he had shown weeks earlier. Seraphine stood beside Nessa. Dorian sat near the back. Tomas had arranged for the independent board members to attend. Calanthe wore a simple black dress. My mother wore a dark green suit. I stood beside her. She looked at me. You're sure? Yes. You don't have to do this. I know. She smiled. Thank you. The music stopped. My mother walked onto the stage. Thank you for coming to my 60th birthday. Mirek smiled. Then she continued. But tonight, there is something more important than my birthday. His expression changed. Calanthe stepped forward. Mirek approached her with the transfer document. You need to sign. She looked at him. No. He blinked. What? I said no. You agreed. I agreed to attend. You signed the acceptance. No. She held up the original form. This is the document I signed. Mirek stared at it. Then he looked at the version in his hand. The two documents were different. Nessa stepped onto the stage. The signature page was removed from one document and attached to another. Mirek's face hardened. This is absurd. Tomas spoke next. The trust agreement contains a fraud trigger provision. Mirek turned toward my mother. You're making a serious mistake. My mother looked directly at him. No. She paused. For 11 years, I have been making the same mistake. Mirek said nothing. She continued. I believe my husband betrayed me. Then she looked at Seraphine. I believe my sister abandoned me. Then at Calanthe. I believe my daughter was safer when she obeyed me. Finally, she looked at me. And I believe my daughter was dangerous because she looked like her father. Her voice shook. I was wrong about all of it. The room was silent. Mirek stepped forward. You're confused. My mother smiled. No. She held up the original trust. For the first time in 11 years, I am not. Nessa played the recording of my father. His voice filled the hall. I did not betray her. Mirek's face went white. The recording continued. The person I fear is not Mirek. Then the second recording played. My father's voice said, Mirek knows where the records are. Mirek turned toward the doors. 2 investigators were standing there. He stopped. One of them said, Mr. Sable, we need to speak with you. Mirek looked at me. You have no idea what you've done. I answered calmly. Yes, I do. He was taken away. The investigation lasted months. Mirek was convicted for fraud, forgery, and misappropriation of charitable funds. The evidence also exposed Elias Ven's role and cleared Dorian Pell of the accusations that had followed him for 11 years. Seraphine testified. Ria cooperated. The hospital records were reviewed. My father's death was officially classified as the result of injuries sustained during the assault, not the accident story Mirek had created. The foundation survived. More importantly, its structure changed. No single person could control its accounts. Every major transaction required independent approval. Every board document became public. And Calanthe did not become the owner. Neither did I. My mother gave control to an independent board, exactly as my father had intended. The money recovered from Mirek's scheme helped restore several community programs. The old Harbor Meridian building was eventually renovated. It became part of the foundation's vocational center. That was where I spent most of the following year. My mother visited often. One afternoon, she stood beside me in the hallway and looked at an old photograph. It was the picture of my father holding me. 4 years, she had kept it hidden. Now it hung where everyone could see it. "You really do look like him," she said. I smiled. "I know." She touched the frame. "I used to hate that." "I know. I don't anymore." I looked at her. "Why?" She turned toward me. "Because I finally understand that you are not his shadow." I smiled. "I'm not. You're you." That sentence meant more to me than any apology. The birthday invitation that had started everything was still in my desk drawer. I kept it, not because it hurt, because it reminded me how easily people can be separated when someone controls the story. My mother had excluded me because she believed my face represented everything she had lost. Mirek used that grief to isolate her. He used Calanthy's loyalty to create false documents. He used Seraphine's guilt to keep an old secret buried. He used my father's death to construct a version of history that benefited him. But in the end, the truth did not come from revenge. It came from records, from witnesses, from a sister finally speaking, from a mother willing to admit she had been wrong, and from a father who had left enough evidence for his daughters to find their way back to each other. A year after the investigation ended, my mother held another birthday dinner. This time, there were no formal invitations, no guest list designed to exclude anyone, just family. Calanthy arrived first. Seraphine brought dessert. Dorian came late and apologized. Nessa complained that everyone was ignoring the financial records she had prepared. My mother laughed. Then she looked at me. "I almost didn't invite you." I smiled. "You did." "I did. That's progress." She laughed. "Considerable progress." We sat together at the table. My mother cut the cake. Then she stopped. She handed me the knife. "You do it." "Why me?" "Because you were the daughter I thought I couldn't face." I looked at her. "And now you're the daughter I don't want to lose again." I cut the first slice. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Calanthy raised her glass. "To the family." My mother smiled. "To the truth." I raised mine. "To never signing anything without reading it." Everyone laughed. And that was how my mother's 60th birthday finally ended. Not with the celebration Mirek had planned. Not with the family division he expected. And not with me proving that I was better than him. It ended with something much simpler. My mother finally looked at my face and saw me. Not my father. Not her grief. Not the past. Me. 4 years, I thought being excluded from that birthday was the cruelest thing my mother could do. Now I understand that the invitation I never received forced us to uncover the truth that had been controlling our family for 11 years. The real punishment for Mirek was not humiliation. It was losing the secrecy he depended on. The real victory for my family was not money. It was learning that trust cannot be built on silence. And the greatest change of all was mine. I no longer apologize when someone tells me I look like my father. I just smile, because I know what I inherited from him. His face, his stubbornness, his refusal to accept a lie just because everyone else believed it. And I also know what I didn't inherit. His enemies, his secrets, his unfinished story. That part belongs to the past. My story is mine. And this time, nobody else gets to write it for me. If this story moved you, subscribe for more family dramas, hidden truths, unexpected twists, and stories where the person everyone blames is not always the person who caused the damage.